हेलो माय फ्रेंड, डजंट मैटर वेदर ईवी और आइस, बॉम्बे में ट्रैफिक में उतना ही टाइम लगता है. Doesn't matter. Right? The
Absolutely, it
problem
doesn't
is
matter.
traffic. The problem is not EV or ICE. Would you agree with me? Pointless to get into EV or CV or doesn't matter, right? Traffic.
Yeah, I agree with you. So traffic definitely does not help you when it comes to driving around, whether it's a EV or a SUV or a small car. But I think if you look at the kind of features that EVs provide, they definitely seem like a more compelling case because if you see EVs globally, a lot of features are also designed for comfort and which are expensive to incorporate in the ICE car, at least in our country, because we have different taxation for ICE vehicles. But EVs can actually, at lower tax, you can actually bring all the advanced features and the comfort can improve. So, yeah, you might cruise along slightly more comfortable in the car.
Ronak, I looked at your presentation, brilliant presentation. But if somebody has to really benefit from that, deep dive work which your firm has done, for an investor, is there time to get excited about this EV migration which is happening? If yes, where should one look at? The current players, incumbents who will become big? Like in banking, it's the current players who only become big, or one should bet on disruptors who can really change the way how this entire EV universe would move. As an investor, what should one look at? Ronak?
I think as an investor in India, you have slightly better advantage for looking at incumbents. And the reason is simple because we don't have the entire value chain of products that go into an EV that are coming from India. So we still depend on a lot of imports from components to subsystems to batteries and all the other chips and everything. We rely a lot on imports, whereas in the ICE vehicle, we at least have a local supply chain. So the incumbents till that time have to balance their portfolio between EVs and the ICE vehicles. That is number one. The second advantage for incumbents, at least in India, is they have a long history of after sales for their existing vehicles, and that has to translate to the EV as well. You can't assume that just because EV has less moving parts, things cannot go wrong. So a lot of times software issues can come up, issue with the chipset can come up, which needs to be handled at the service center in the same manner, the same reliability as we have seen with the ICE vehicles so far. There is one advantage incumbents might have today, which a new player will not have in terms of having distribution reach and even the sales reach. And thirdly, as the pricing of the EV, like even Homa said earlier, the pricing of the EV, the delta between taxation is so good that you can actually launch a bigger car, a more comfortable vehicle, and create that habit of people choosing the EV. So if you look at some of the other countries, they are good examples to see how the ecosystem has come up, but they are not going to translate directly into India. The challenge is over many developed countries, they also have restrictions on buying new EV cars. Even China has in major cities some restrictions on buying the ICE cars, sorry. And then EV becomes a natural option. So that's why the adoption has been much faster. There's been a lot of incentive push. At the same time, legislation push in making people convert their existing fleet to an EV fleet. So those things don't are not happening at the same rate in India, although we have our own quirks. But I think from the value chain point of view, from the after sales point of view, and even providing a better quality product point of view, incumbents in India today have an advantage because they have the capacity.
So I'll throw this one open and anyone can pick it up, and I'm purely trying to address the universe of EV. I have an auto expert. He's going to have a very busy year because there are so many new car launches that'll keep him busy. I have Ronak, who understands the importance of identifying companies which can really be benefiting if the EV transition has to go through. So gentlemen, 5 years from now, if somebody is betting on this EV transition, will they make a lot of money? Now, what stock you buy, when you buy, that's all separate. But as an idea, like we said in 2014, India is an idea ka samay aa gaya hai. So for investors, should one really bet on this entire EV universe? Yes or no?
Look, I think long-term EVs are the way to go, but I think in the transition, there are a lot of unknowns. I think the biggest factor which is going to play is the GST rate. At some point, I think as penetration increases, gets into double digits, I think someone's going to wake up, the government's going to wake up and see how much, they're losing in terms of a lower GST. So I think that to me is the biggest kind of let's say a factor which will play, uh, and it will play on demand. It will play on profitability because right now, as we said, it's a single most important factor that is driving demand. I mean, it's if you look at it globally, also right now, I think we have possibly the most favorable taxation policies for EVs. And even at a state level, a lot of them are, waiving off road tax and all. So, don't forget, cars are hugely taxed in India. ICE vehicles, it's punitive actually. But, with EVs, there's a huge leeway and relaxation. So I think that's going to be one factor which we will have to see. My feeling is that at some point the GST level will go up in the next couple of years, in the next 5 years. I would think, and to come to your point on traffic being a bigger issue, I think there is a case to promote small EVs. That's the ideal urban solution. Firstly, they're non-polluting, they're easy to drive, they take up road space. So it could be a scenario if you have two taxation levels for EVs, maybe a sub 4 meter EV stays at 5%, and a plus 4 meter can go to something like 10%. I mean, this is just something that one could imagine. But I think
Right.
the GST factor is going to be the major thing. But I think long term EVs are the way to go. That's the only way to kind of nix public enemy number one, which is CO2.
Right.
And the transition is what we have to see how long it will take. I think the transition will be very long in India. It's a complicated country. Markets are very different.
Right.
Obviously, in urban cities, we'll see it much faster. But
Right.
yeah, I think they are going to happen. It's just that how long will that transition take?
Okay. Ronak, my next question is perhaps just a name. Tesla. Everybody is talking about it, right? Tesla. From last 3 days, all auto companies are saying Tesla. What is happening if Tesla comes? Will it come? If it comes, they will be in a different range. Auto stocks are down because Tesla is coming.
I think we should welcome some different kind of competition because that creates a different ladder in the customer's mind for what product they want to place at. So before BYD came into India, the EVs in India were, of course, using good quality designs, but of course they were not, from an international standpoint, acceptable designs. So, for example, BYD sells well in China, and the same way Tesla sells well globally. If some new designs, some new standards, and new expectations are built into the product, then at least customers have a ladder of price where they can choose whether, okay, it's a cheap car you want to buy, then you go with the domestic standards. If you want a global standard, you want to pay up a little bit extra for different kind of features, then you buy a car like Tesla or a BYD who has global standards. So I think it creates a customer ladder. I think it will be at a slightly higher price point compared to what EVs are generally sold in India today, and there's always been a market for that. So it's not necessary that just because a new player comes, it cannibalizes the existing market. We have to see how the basics of selling a car again in India are very different. We don't have direct to customer like how Tesla does in many parts in the world, developed markets. But if you have a distribution model, if you have a sales model which is direct to customer, it's also innovative. We will see how that also evolves the way cars are sold in India. So it's more promising in terms of creating a new entry, a new expectation from a product point of view. At the same time, price points are tough to match the existing mid to lower range EVs in India. So we'll see how it plays out.
All right, Hormas, with this, we let you go on that. Thank you so much for taking the time out and speaking with us and giving us your insights on what's been happening within the EV space. But Ronak, lot many questions for you because we have been just chatting about that the study that you have done in the Chinese EV market and the transition that we have seen. But Ronak, back home, there are lot many launches planned up for 2025. Just the Auto Expo, we have seen that the major focus was in the EV space, be it from the four-wheeler side, two-wheeler, and even when it comes to the commercial vehicle side, they're getting ready. But Ronak, the other debate is on the profitability because a lot of these companies are still struggling to be EBITDA neutral on the front. Some of them have, but the smaller players are definitely facing the challenge given the capital intensive nature of the business. Help us understand that. How do you read it into the profitability side of ICE versus EVs, and how long it could the run be to catch up and match the same?
Sure. First of all, thank you for watching the presentation. The one lesson that I learned from looking at the Chinese companies is that we cannot compare any market to Chinese market because they operate at a very different capacity than we do. Secondly, the entire value chain exists in their country. So they can make batteries, they can make semiconductors, they can make everything within the country. So they don't have to depend on the import duty structures or tariff structures for importing critical technology. That is another interesting thing that Chinese have achieved. In our country, the interesting part is the market share for EVs is much smaller. So only a lakh or so EVs get sold in our country compared to around 40 lakh overall cars that get sold, new cars get sold in our country. So from that point of view, players who are cautious and scaling up gradually is very important so that you will not spend a lot of money into capex and operating expenditure, which may not be able to generate profits for you immediately. So yeah, slow profits is a feature in this case because all you're doing is today putting up cars on the street, putting up features in your vehicles and products, which the market will accept and you get feedback. You will see how well they work. You will see how they can optimize the bill of materials over a period of time. They'll make sure that, okay, this component was fully imported at one point. Now, can we indigenize some of the manufacturing? Can we do more assembly here? Can we do more manufacturing here? So slowly and steadily, the value chain, just like we have seen in the other auto ancillary value chain for the ICE vehicles scale in India over the past several decades, the same way it will happen in the EV. And it's a slow process. It need not be very fast because on one hand, the incumbents have to manage their profitability for the ICE product portfolio as well. At the same time, they have to balance the capex and innovative investments that they have to do on the EV side. So slow is better, slow is good. And you also get a time to iterate with different brands. The cycle of launches is also much faster when you look at EVs. And that's the reason I compare it to the smartphone ecosystem, where you had a very fast cycle, where the technology evolution is so fast right now in EVs. The same thing was in the early days of smartphone as well. So we have to make sure that we have the value chain advantage. We have some sort of manufacturing which is local and depend less on imports over a long period of time. And that takes time to build capacity.
Okay. So Ronak, if one has to, let's say, make a EV portfolio, just a EV portfolio. By the way, there is a fund which is got a EV portfolio, right? But let's say if somebody has to say, okay, this is the next big wave where investments would be done, innovation would be done, wealth would be created, value migration will happen. I'm putting everything together. So if you have to make an EV fund, what would that fund have? Incumbents, challengers, assemblers, battery makers. How would you assemble this fund? Assemble is the right word, no? Cardi mein assembly. Assemble a fund for us.
So ideally, all of the above. So I won't have the specific company's name because a lot of companies are also on the curve of investments. So you may see the existing companies also look quite different in the next 5 years' time, where a share of revenue comes from the EV portfolio as well. But ultimately, it has to boil down to the volume of cars sold in our country and manufactured in our country. So as long as that volume is growing gradually, you will see that transition happen within incumbents as well, that a share of the portfolio comes from the EV side. So companies might look very different 5-7 years out when we see today. And also we have to make sure that the adoption happens at the rate. So a lot of the things that Homas mentioned earlier about taxation, those are very, very valid in our country. The size of the cars are very, very valid in our country. So product market fit, I think, is yet to be established for in EV. And on the infrastructure side, we also need to have charging infrastructure at home as well as on the street sides. All those things are coming up. So it will over a period of time become better and more clear. But I think all of the above, the component makers, the incumbents, the EV only companies, all of these battery manufacturers, semiconductor companies, all of these should be part of that EV portfolio if you want to build.
Okay. By the way, Ronak, EV or ICE? क्या use कर रहे हो?
I use ICE so far.
और इतनी देर EV पे मैंने बात करी है, लो जी खोदा
But
पार
I have
निकली
not, I
चुई
have not bought a new car. I have not bought a new car. I'm still using my old car.
No,
so-
खोदा पार निकली चुई है इतना EV के ऊपर इतनी बढ़िया प्रेजेंटेशन फिर भी हम ICE यूज करते हैं
No, if I buy a new car, it might be an EV, but at the moment I'm happy with my old car. It will give me still a couple of more years, 3-4 years. I think it's there in the car. I don't want to part with it.
Now we know why sales are down. People like you, Ronak.
He's
Who made money in
But I'm a
marketing?
value,
waiting
I'm a
to
value
get the
buyer. I'm a value buyer, so I will not needlessly change my car if I don't need.
Meanwhile, Nifty has just managed to find support at 2800, 22,800. So 5 times now.
Yeah,
Double bottom, triple
22,900
bottom,
is-
quadra bottom, penta bottom.
Yeah, is
5
where we're
times, right?
currently at. Maruti, of course, is under pressure. HDFC Bank is under pressure. But the broader markets are holding out quite okay, actually, while the breath is actually tilted in favor of the advances. But Ronak, we'll let you go on that note. Good chatting with you as always and getting in all that perspective. Today, of course, it's metals, oil and gas, chemicals and financials which are actually taking the lead from within the large caps. We'll take a very quick break, come right back with more.
If you like this video, then like, share and subscribe to ET Now.